I will now, to my ability, describe in detail the two aspects of schizotypal. Aspect 1, perceptual distortion. Essentially, this is caused by a horrible, continual anxiety, but the anxiety and perception are hardwired into each other, so it is impossible to separate the two. They are a single entity. The perceptual distortion is the mental component of the anxiety. In fact, the mental component is so insistent, so forceful, so commanding that it takes a certain level of self-awareness for the schizotypal individual to even know that the anxiety exists. I personally did not realize that I had a chronic, continual anxiety until a couple weeks after I was diagnosed. The flavor of the anxiety is an acute, uncomfortable self-consciousness. Keep that in mind. My ability to grasp reality and concentrate on anything is substantially impaired by the perceptual distortion. The vast majority of the time, I experience this in two ways. One, feels like the anxiety is continually yanking, pulling on my mind and sense of self every moment, clawing into, biting into, scraping into, tugging at my mind and sense of self. This may sound vague, but for me it is anything but. It is the best way I've thought of to describe it. Actually, awkwardness is a word that aptly describes this experience of the perceptual distortion. Awkwardness in emotion, awkwardness in perception. I mean, this awkwardness, this actually is a way to describe like the milder form of this, when all of my schizotypal everything is not super intense, when I'm actually doing well in a good state, but it's still there affecting me. Okay, there's this the anxiety is awkwardly tugging on my mind, pulling on it, pushing on it, just making it difficult for me to grasp reality, to concentrate on things. And then just make me, feeling this awkwardly self-conscious, and then with human beings, making it just, pulling on me, pushing on me, and trying to really stay engaged with the emotional spontaneity of the human beings, but it's just like, God, it's so hard, I'm like, my minds and my emotions, and I'm trying to, get my mind and emotions to cooperate with reality, trying to get it out into reality, trying, and it's like, it's not quite happening. The other experience of the perceptual distortion is easier to describe. It comes in the form of compulsive, instantaneous, compelling fixations and obsessions. Honestly, I don't have the words to convey just how compelling and important the obsessions, fixations initially seem. All throughout the day, every day, my mind wants to obsess on, fixate on, potentially anything, if it exists, if it is a piece of reality. My mind can grab hold of it so tightly. It is so incredibly difficult to control this, or equivalently to give up this control. Even when I write a note to myself, for example, a note meant to be read only by me, like here's an example from one of my notebooks. Alright, see the handwriting, maybe you can see it in the video. The handwriting is fairly chaotic, but the spelling is impeccable. It's perfect spelling. I have to have perfect spelling. Alright, just very, kind of compulsive. And additionally, you might not be able to see it in the video, but some of the letters, like an H, might be dark, and a the may be darker than the T and the E. This is because my mind is fixated on is captivated by the interaction between the ink and the paper fiber. Somehow the interaction between the ink and the paper fibers is just captivating and compelling, that has energy to it. Other salient examples. My mind compulsively wants to construct elaborate patterns, meanings, symbolism, interpretations from random strings of words, syllables, syntax, numbers, car license plates, names of people and places, body movements, facial expressions, what a particular person is doing, the positions of objects like doors or pieces of trash. All of it seems imbued with enigmatic, special significance. My mind, may even, find a spider in some place off in the woods, and suddenly the spider in its web is captivating, and it can really feel like the spider is trying to telepathically transmit some communication to me, like the spider is trying to tell me something. Any physical sensation can feel either compellingly important or insanely distracting. I'm compelled to constantly rearrange my body because it is seemingly never positioned as it should be. Or I squirm my foot, or I press my fingernails lightly together, and the sensation compellingly, distinctly feels to be conjuring magical energy. And without exception, I have to talk myself into certainty that the zippers of my backpack are fully zipped. And I have way too many imaginary conversations with real people. Way too many. Most of these imaginary conversations are obsessively focused on what a particular individual or relationship is not. They amount to self-indulgent, egotistical gunk-blowing arising from a painful obsessing over a lack of connection with particular people, and they are a poor use of time. But they emerge with such spontaneity and rapidity and vigor that choosing not to indulge them is not easy. And my mind has very unhealthy, obsessively moralistic tendencies. Way too much of my life and sanity has gone down the drain, obsessively morally condemning others inside of my head, or obsessively morally tearing myself apart. And I will leave to your imagination the countless hours of my life that I've wasted judging myself, morbidly obsessing over my choices and future choices, freaking out over not having enough time, excruciatingly analyzing my relationship with one or more other human beings, feeling sorry for myself, compulsively defining my identity, and similar vices. All of these obsessions and fixations are emotionally disconnected from the inner sense of positive meaning and purpose. They are often really interesting and seemingly imbued with paramount importance, but they are never satisfying. When I attain mental clarity and emotional connection to positive meaning, it becomes apparent that the underlying emotion is an anxious self-consciousness. My best days happen when I succeed at ignoring 80% of the stuff that my mind wants to do. Aspect 2. Acute discomfort around other human beings. if you are a human being and you make or cause any kind of physical movement or any kind of sound within my sensory perception, actually, if you do any action within my sensory perception, if you do anything which gives me a visceral reminder of your existence, it tends to feel like an inherently aggressive invasion of my mind, a violation of my sense of self. Various factors affect this. If I am in a social situation, then I have the liberty to consciously allow the people around me to enter my mind, and my discomfort becomes much, much less significant as I am putting energy into seeing people for who they really are and having fun-filled, amazingly therapeutic interactions. But if I am not putting 101% of my energy into my relationships with other human beings, then usually the acute discomfort is a effing headache. If I am doing anything requiring conceptual thought, and the more conceptual thought required, the worse it is, although often even something as simple as tying my shoes or washing my hands can be an excruciating struggle because of what people in the background, because they exist and they're making sounds and whatever. But if I'm doing anything requiring concentration, okay, then sounds and movements do other human beings undermine my grip of self and reality. It is redonkulously, excruciatingly aggravating. It feels essentially like God, something like that. It really feels approximately that's what it feels like. Sounds tend to be worse than movements, and by far the worst types of sounds for me are sharp, discrete sounds like dishes clattering, a hammer hammering, some electronic gadget beep, beep, beeping away, or even a dog barking. Even sounds of non-human origin, like a dog barking or a sliding window banging in its grooves because of the wind, can cause me severe stress. Anyway, let us discuss grocery stores. A grocery store is conceptually very complicated, requiring many quick considerations of health, political, economic justice, environmental, and personal pocketbook factors, so it requires a great deal of concentration, and it is a crowded space filled with lots and lots of strangers moving this way, moving that way, strangers having conversations, strangers pushing loud, clangy shopping carts. Therefore, grocery stores are almost as bad as it gets. Sometimes they're hell. Alright. Many things can go wrong for me in a grocery store, and one of the worst things that can happen for me is for someone to push a shopping cart in my direction. Say I'm trying to decide if I want to buy a marker set, and some guy turns into the aisle with a shopping cart. It very, very much feels like he is doing this in an exact, precisely calculated way, maliciously designed to interfere with my emotional and mental stability. My mind's instantaneous compulsive response is resentment, anger, and frequently moral condemnation. It feels simply wrong that he is doing this to me, that he is assaulting my mind. It is an acutely self-conscious experience. Of course, I know that all this is irrational. which adds to the relief I feel when I have finished my shopping and have made it outside where the natural elements soothe me, and the density of human beings is a lot less, and there is much less to think about. But knowing that all this is irrational does not keep it from happening. My mind instantaneously will compulsively begin resisting and often resenting and often judging somebody for raising their arm, for tapping their foot, for having a conversation too close to me, for playing music that I can hear inside my room, or for walking in a straight line. Sometimes people walking in a straight line just drives me freaking batty. My mind really wants to blame the other person, not itself, for the nasty feelings. This contradicts my beliefs and values, and it can be tremendously difficult to respond in a healthy way when it is vigorously asserting itself. It sucks. So, if you want to do me a kindness, stop walking in straight lines. Walk curly-Q. See, like this. I want to add a few words which might increase the clarity or definition of the picture I'm trying to create in your mind. All right? When I say that sounds or movements or actions do other human beings, feel like an assault on my mind, I really mean that. Okay? Like, for example, like in the room I'm in. Okay, when in the room that whenever anyone uses the sink in the kitchen, there are, like, it causes these weird, some kind of piping, some structure within the walls of this room to make a loud mechanical clunking sound. And so whenever anyone uses that kitchen sink, the sound happens, and it really feels like this person is creating this sound specifically to attack my mind, to attack my sense of self, to attack me, to hurt me. It's like, oh, it really feels like they are attacking me. So it's like, it's not simply anxiety with noise sensitivity. This is a very existential anxiety, a very self-conscious, self-centric anxiety. All right, and so the sound of the mechanical clunking feels like a psychic assault. Okay, and I know that this is not rational, and if I have enough presence, then I can rearrange my perception and, to some degree, enter the perception of the other person. And it's like, okay, they're not actually creating the sound to attack me, to destabilize my reality. They to attack me psychically. They are simply using the kitchen sink. They are getting water or washing their dishes or something. And then and actually assuming someone else's perspective to some degree, it helps ground my reality and helps me get past these really heinous feelings and perceptions. And one poignant difficulty I have in relating to people, be aware that this poignant difficulty, like all things psychological, is sometimes more so, sometimes less so. Is that when I'm in public, my mind tends to grab on the most, like, every random thing a human being does. The way they're standing, okay? Or the fact that they said something, or that they did not say something, or that they're talking behind me, or or that the woman at the gas station, convenience store, she was silent for a period, or when I go out the door of the convenience store and somebody enters the convenience store at the exact same time that I leave it. That is like my mind wants to analyze that and find meaning and symbolism in that. Or, I'm in a social situation and it's like the earrings somebody's wearing, it's like my mind's like, whoa, or the way, it's like some inflection, someone's voice, I'm like, God, I might want to think about that, and my mind wants to think about it and construct meanings and interpretations and patterns, and it's totally out of tune with the actual energy of the situation, of the emotions and intentions of the people around me. My mind's always trying to grab onto every single random thing a human being does and to construct patterns and meanings from it, and it really interferes with my ability to cultivate emotional intelligence. So, the obsessions, fixations, and acute interpersonal discomfort feed into each other. The obsessions and fixations inherently make a schizotypal individual less interested in getting to know people, and the acute discomfort automatically, it just works this way, makes the obsessions and fixations even more compelling. The discomfort spontaneously directs energy into them. The sum result is a human being self-consciously obsessed with odd thoughts who, in the presence of others, tends to much more strongly cling to these thoughts while resisting, resenting, or judging the others for seeming in their presence and actions to be oppositional to the perceived significance of these thoughts. Over time, this tends to produce a very solitude-seeking individual with weird beliefs, beliefs which don't make complete sense when explained, but which never seem batshit, never totally crazy, just somewhat disconnected from reality. This individual is never quite comfortable around people, but cannot stop thinking obsessively about them. It is my belief that schizotypal is entirely maladaptive in a modern context, but that in a tribal context, it would not be maladaptive at all. There are deeper layers of truth here, I think. Schizotypal is weird, but weird in a seemingly very specific, orderly way. It seems to me a quite finely tuned pattern of social isolation, weird beliefs, and distorted perceptions of other people. I am alluding to ideas proposed by Robert Sapolsky, a big-brained dude at Stanford, who pointed out that a schizotypal individual in a tribal context would make a perfect shaman. And in my opinion, he is right on the money. His ideas make everything fall perfectly into place. Check him out, Sapolsky. Watch his biological underpinnings of religiosity lecture on YouTube. I remember a performance art piece I did years ago, years before I was diagnosed, and what I remember is writhing on the floor, speaking utterances and making weird noises and channeling or striving to channel a 200 million year old snake god. And I did not actually believe in the existence of the snake god. It was performance art. But what strikes me now is how incredibly natural it was for me to do that. And there's many other performance art things I've done throughout my life that are just as weird in similar ways. And it just, it just strikes me as like, wow, it really is as if my psychological chemistry is designed to want to do things like that. In the next two videos, I discuss effective, healthy ways I have found to rise above my schizotypal nastiness. In the next video specifically, I discuss the medicine of thinking in terms of ego and learning to take the ego's initial wishes and perceptions much less seriously.